but he did say Molasses was always good to play live. I can't really remember what that one was about, though. I mean, he wrote it. Other than it was about some girl.
Yeah.
Now, I had an idea that molasses is maybe slang, as in Mo lasses. Is it
Oh,
more
yes,
women?
more women. Yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. Thank you for being here. It's Andy, it's John, and it's time for music. John's going to be offering me something to go off and listen to, and I'm going to do just that. And then we're going to come back and discuss it, hopefully to the enjoyment of you, the audience. But John, what do you, the offerer, have in store today?
Okay, I have a band, which doesn't really help when searching on internet. The band is called Revolver. So you
Okay.
can imagine the results are all got black and white pictures of the Fab Four. And bugger all about this band. They're called Revolver, and the track is called Molasses.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking of what a Google search would yield, and all I could think of was like every other page was about the Beatles, and every other page was about just a Smith and Wesson. So
Yeah,
yeah, Revolver. It
I
is
didn't
a
even get that far. It was just Beatles for the first three
yeah.
pages.
All right. Well, let me scurry off, give Molasses a listen, and I'll come back and let you know what I think of this tune, man. Yeah, this is an interesting start to this song. We've got these just this instant saturation and fuzz guitar to kick things off, and like the drummer is using his sticks as like almost like a click track in the very beginning, and then all of a sudden you get that boom bass slide, and everything kind of comes to fruition, and you've got this song and sound now really fully realized. It's interesting by the time the verse kicks off and it's got that like up tempo drum beat that kind of shifts a little bit. Um, it has this almost like punk rock sound to it, like to the progression, to that drum beat and everything. But it's kind of packaged as more alt rock sounding, especially with the vocals. Like the vocals aren't keeping up with the fervent nature of the beat, which you would probably find in like a punk song. Instead, it kind of like falls back a little bit, and it makes the whole thing as well with like the tones and everything on the guitar, gives it much more of an alt rock kind of sound. But that drum beat, man, just makes me think of like some definite punk stuff. But yeah, I love the sound of it thus far. You've got like fuzzy power guitar, but also you're getting this like wailing kind of guitar at times as well. And I really love that sound and the dynamic between the two different sounds that the guitars utilize thus far. But yeah, I'm intrigued, that's for sure. And I'd love to see where it goes. So let's press on. some feedback. Yeah. These drums. It's interesting. Okay, so that portion right there, I don't know what it was. It had to have been like 10 seconds or so. It actually kind of, everything kind of, it's almost like the name Molasses. This is the first time it makes sense to me, because for a moment there, just like those 10 seconds or so, it felt like the music was almost meeting some resistance, like it was trudging for a moment, especially compared to the beat, like, and tempo speed that we were like accustomed to that point. So yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting little mechanism. God, it's the drums and just the sonic tone of all the guitar stuff is really, really energetic, frenetic. Yeah, digging it. I want to take that back a little bit. Now it speeds up. That bass pedal. Wow, yeah, what energy. Just cacophony of drum and guitar. And I just hit you like a freight train. Yeah, I really enjoyed that tune. I loved all of its energy. I didn't catch much, if anything, from those lyrics. I was just so caught up in the sound, and what a good sound it was. Yeah, just riddled with energy. I love how at the end it was almost as if the energy got the best of the instruments and they just were kind of flailing around like a fish out of water looking for oxygen, until finally it had to give in and keel over. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, interesting. And 4.5 minutes, it felt like it was 3 minutes just because of all the energy. It's like I'm almost exhausted on their behalf. But yeah, we'll have to get back and learn more about Revolver, the band, this album, and Molasses, this tune. Let's get back to John and figure some things out.
Well, now you're back.
I am. I am returned.
What do you make of a Revolver?
Oh, this was a very interesting listen. Such a cacophony of sounds throughout this tune. So it doesn't shy from starting off with it either. I mean, we get loud, fuzzy guitars that just absolutely saturate the ears from the word go. And then like you get these like little the drummer, it's punctuated by the drummer using his sticks as like a click track for just a few seconds. And then after this nice little, to use a John term, bass bump, we get the drums pound their way in with these powerful strikes on the snare. Once the verse proper kicks off, the music itself has this up tempo, almost kind of like, to me, it sounded like a punk progression. Like the style, the progression of the verse sounded very punky. Now the packaging of it and the tones and the sounds that they put over it was more alternative rock. But there's just something, and like even the way the singer used like room in his delivery rather than keeping up with the tempo, like blah, 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 blah. Like he gave it room to breathe. So it was a very alt rock packaging, but that tempo sounded very punk to me. And I like how after the verses, the song opens up a little, like after the verses start, like it opens up a little bit more, and the tension and the tempo of the drums, like take a breath, pardon me, after the verse, take a breath. And it gives the guitar this time to shine a bit sonically. I really like that higher, almost incessant guitar between the verses before the drums come back in gangbusters. And around the 140 mark, we get this high feedback coming into focus on the guitar that sticks around for about 10 to 12 seconds. And while the music dies down, like the music dies and you can start to hear the feedback more prevalent as the music's dying. And it's like this piercing light that's cutting through all this like frenetic energy of the music. And I thought that was an interesting little addition to the tune. So as I mentioned, the music kind of comes to this momentary rest, as if honestly to catch its breath, and who could blame it at this point? And with a few strikes of some like distorted chords, everyone kicks back in, and at this time it's like all the way up to 11. There's so much fuzz and bombastic drum work where again the snare and the toms are this kind of like main focal point of the drum beat. There's also this amazing like, and I know this sounds like a pejorative term, but shrill guitar blasting that comes in, but it's shrill in the best way. And during this portion of the song, and only further bolsters this manic energy that the song has going for itself. And again, they use this near stoppage in music around the 212 mark, where the resonance of the notes act as this brief moment for the song, kind of like a respite to gather itself before shifting to the next portion. And then there's a brief section of the tune where from the 233-ish mark to the 245-ish mark, again, another one of these 10 to 12 second moments in time, the song takes on this almost desert rock, sludge rock kind of sound, especially compared to the speed of everything else that came before it. And it's like the music is wading through this viscous pool of liquid that is almost creating a feeling of resistance. And again, it's brief and unexpected, and I like it a lot. And for the first time in this whole track, the name seems apropos because it feels like you're moving through molasses in this brief little juncture of the song that is fleeting compared to the well over 4 minutes, close to 5 minutes of the song's length. But I did find that to be probably the musically the most interesting portion of the whole song, just because it's so juxtaposed to the rest of what I'd heard to that point. So shortly after the 3-minute mark, the music kicks off again, and we're off to the races. The entire latter portion of the song again pushes the sonic limits with this fervent drum pace and screeching guitar fuzz. And apparently the drum's heart finally gives out from exhaustion at around the 4-minute mark. And we're left with this cacophony of guitar that almost sounds like it's flailing around for oxygen like some sort of mighty fish that's been pulled from the sea until it finally acquiesces to its fate and suffocates, and the sound kind of dies. And I gotta say, because of all of the sound stuff that had me absolutely like, my attention was fully peaked for during all of this stuff. It kind of like grabs you and doesn't let you go. I only caught bits and pieces of the lyrical content, so you're gonna have to help me out there. But in all, I really did enjoy the track and just the sonic energy that it had from the moment go.
Cool. Yeah, reason I picked this was I thought it was an interesting track. It's not by any means one of my favorites. It's just another example of that era and what bands were stumbling towards at the time. And I thought, as you say, sonically, it's quite interesting. You wouldn't be surprised to know this is one of this band's first releases. So they're kind of feeling their way, as it were, sonically, as to where they're going to get to. There is bugger all about this band on the internet. They were a guitar band from London, and they peddled their wares from 1990 to 1994, so a very brief little period. And that started that wonderful period in time, which I really enjoyed. They have been described, and this is interesting, in terms of your reaction and everything, described as shoegaze, indie rock, jangle pop, and noise pop. I think what was interesting, what you were saying, is the sort of the difference, and we've said this before in other things and genres and whatever, what shoegaze means to me, who was there at the time, and then to other people, and what shoegaze means in America, are all slightly different. They're all pretty much the same family, but early shoegaze was quite noisy and aggressive that I tended towards. And you had this sort of dream pop part of shoegaze as well, which probably came up from the Cocteau Twins. So that first energetic, aggressive is Jesus and Mary Chain type of stuff, and then you have this weird and wonderful floaty stuff, but also off kilter, which is your My Bloody Valentine. So you've got three sort of different parts of shoegaze, and Lush was also sort of in the middle of that. So yeah, the band are Matt Flint, guitar and vocals, Hamish Brown on bass, and Nick Dewey on drums. Flint and Dewey.
Just those three, huh? That's a lot of sound. A lot of sound.
It is. Flint and Dewey have been at school and in school bands together, and the two of them moved down to London in the autumn of 1990, and they met Brown, and then he completed the lineup. The bands got really early sort of interest, and they signed to Hut Records, which was a subsidiary of Virgin Records, in the summer of 91, for a year, The band quickly picked up a following, supporting the likes of Chapter House, Slow Dive, Teenage Fan Club, and Blur. And gained a lot of press coverage, most notably in The Enemy and Melody Maker, which we've mentioned lots of times before, and a magazine called The Face, which you probably haven't heard mention of before. Just very quick aside, I'm not really noticing this, but The Face was a glossy magazine that was all posture and no content. It was a fashion-y type cool thing, sort of magazine. And it was so far up his own arse, it could see the back of its own mouth. It was incredible. They went almost bust when they made up a story about Jason Donovan and he sued them. And yeah, it was all to do with lemon juice in his hair. It was very, very stupid. But they did have sometimes some so cool photo shoots with like cool bands and stuff. There's a lot of stuff about the sort of stuff that GQ did about fashion and all sorts of nonsense. And I kind of miss it in a way, even though I couldn't stand it at the time. But there you go. So their first single, Heaven Sent an Angel, topped the UK independent charts, as did the follow-up Crimson and their third single, Venice. So strong showing in the indie sector, as it were. And the band did sort of specialize in these bright, abrasive guitar pop songs with strong melodies. But they were determined to, and ultimately failed to, distinguish themselves from other guitar bands of that era. There was a lot that were coming through that kind of not sounded like this, but yeah, it did sound like this, and at that same sort of starting point. The UK press lumped them in with shoegaze, and there's a tag that the band did not like at all. What they did do is they compiled the first three singles. So I mean, this is an EP, so 12-inch of that first single. It's known as the 45 EP. It has that on the Molasses is the third track. Yeah, it was their first EP. So Heaven Sent an Angel was their first single. It's track one. Painted Pictures track two, Molasses track three, and Cherish track four. It's one of their heaviest songs, and that's probably why I like it. So they compiled the first three EPs together and then released it in the States only as a sort of compilation album called Baby's Angry. And it gained a bit of airplay on college radio. So the band actually toured America in the autumn of '92 on a co-headlining tour. And I guess they must have had an American. That's what bands had back then, didn't they? They had like a UK or European label, and then they were signed to an American sort of partner. And they were signed with fellow Caroline Records act, Drop 19s. So they toured with them and co-headlined. I think that's quite cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Because I know you're fond of a few of their tracks.
Yeah.
So in '93, Revolver released the single "Cradle Snatch," closely followed by their only ever studio album, "Cold Water Flat." Now they changed their sound for this because again, I think they were fed up with shoegaze and all that sort of noise, and so they went for a more sophisticated sound. It was probably better written, but it was trying to get towards the sort of indie pop sound. I don't rate it, to be honest with you. I like Waltz and all that noise, but that's just me. They didn't even match the sales that they got from the indie sector, and so Virgin dropped them after their final single, "I Wear Your Chain." It failed to even make the top 75. So the band were at the time recording an album. They're about halfway through it, trying to persuade Virgin not to drop them, so that didn't work. So then they recorded the second half of this album's worth of demos to try and get another label to sign them, but it didn't happen. So they split at the beginning of '94. So very brief time in the sun. Now lyrics. There's not a website on the planet or the Tinterverse that has these lyrics. So I had to go through and listen to it and write them down. I got a little bit tired about halfway through, and there's a couple bits he just bloody mumbles. So caveats, etc. If you can do any better, answers on a postcard to I don't give a shit. So here we go. Best guess lyrics. I never expected this. You told me that everything. I never expected this. The honey melts on me. I've been watching you, every move that you make. These eyes are my solace. These eyes are my solace. I never expected this. Walk the streets and still you're found. I never expected this. Every lie gets mirrored true. I've been watching you. My Alexia's sharp. These eyes are my solace. These eyes are my solace. And I've put in my notes, break down and burn. Musically. Then comes back in, revoking my words. Your diamond heart. Revoking my words. Words can never change my thoughts. I've been watching you, every move that you make. These eyes are my solace. These eyes are my more guitars and drums. Proper madness ending. That's what I've read. I do like the sort of the sonic breakdown at the end. It's just one of my weak spots. And I think in this song, there's quite a nice sort of, I mean, it's almost like a semitone out of tune at parts. And there's that sort of, as you say, that higher, almost droning guitar.
Yeah.
Gives me shades of Velvet Underground's first album, that same similar sort of sound. But so yeah, I just like it's a good effort. I think it's not a fantastic song, but it's a nice one to listen to now and then, and I think it's fun and something a bit different. Just to finish off the story, so they broke up, obviously. So Matt Flynn, who was the sole songwriter for the band, he went on to play bass guitar for Death in Vegas from 1996 onwards. And he also had his own band called Deep Cut. And I don't think they got anywhere either. And Nick Dewey, he played drums for James Dean Bradfield, who is the lead singer of the Manic Street Preachers. He did a solo tour in 2006. And as I say, Nick Drury played. Nothing on the other guy. I think he probably retired to the country and opened up his own greengrocers. And I can't confirm that. No one can. And just lastly, I had a thought on this. There was an interview I found with Matt Flint when he was doing his other band and working with Death in Vegas, just talking about it wasn't great to be fair in terms of any information for this, but he did say Molasses was always good to play live. I can't really remember what that one was about though. I mean, he wrote it. Other than it was about some girl.
Yeah.
Now, I had an idea that molasses is maybe slang, as in lasses.
Oh,
More
yes,
women.
more women. Yes, of course.
That's just a thought. I mean, again, but I thought it
Yeah,
was
but
quite
it's
funny.
funny because it's like the lyrics sound to be about one person that he's clearly infatuated with, rather than this like playboy who's going out chasing molasses.
Yeah,
For me, I like to think that little 12-minute blurred bit of the song where things kind of like slow down a bit is emblematic of the
yeah.
molasses. But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting name, for sure.
Mm.
And it's funny with like I know that they didn't have like major success, but they appear to me they've charted what with 3 songs,
Yeah.
granted
Indie
independent
wise,
charts,
yeah,
nonetheless enough had enough success or potential to warrant a U.S. co-headlining tour, and yet
yeah.
you can't even get lyrics to one of their songs that they enjoyed playing live the most. It's like it's just odd that stuff's not out there.
It
I
is.
mean, I
It's sad.
believe you. It's just weird what is and isn't available to us on the internet.
Yeah, I'm hampered by every time you tap Revolver in, up comes the album. You know?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not
Like I
easy.
know plenty about that. That's not what I was looking for.
Yeah. I do know that one.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think they would be like a deep cut on a sort of early 90s compilation, that someone put
yeah.
together. They'd whack in one of these, one of those 3 sort of EPs, tracks from the EP. It's decent and it's enjoyable. I mean, but yeah, so I just thought it'd be something a bit different and a bit more good old fashioned early 90s noise for you.
Yeah, no, this is something
Yeah.
it was a little less foreign to me, but I did really enjoy just the energy and just
Yeah.
the whole sonic landscape that they created. It was good
Yeah,
stuff.
you
It
can
was good
tell
stuff.
they're trying to do something, aren't they? They
Yeah,
wouldn't, and then it's no Radiohead. Don't get me wrong, but at least they're trying to do something. And
exactly.
in the words of, there was a compilation came out. Oh, when was it? Early noughties of Dinosaur Jr. and Jay Massis stuff, and the title of it was called "Ear Bleeding Country." And I've always thought that's a fantastic name for that sort of
Yeah,
sound,
yeah,
ear bleeding country. Brilliant. And I think we just took a little day trip there, just jumped off the ferry, went on to round the port and back in again. In time for evening drinks with the captain. Anyway, I digress. So I will wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this little portion of 90s
pleasure.
nonsense. Folks out there, tell us what you think. Do you know Revolver and the other probably more well-known tracks? Let us know what you think. If you like this, hit the like button, all 15 of you, and and drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Other tracks, there's not a huge amount. I really don't rate their first album. I think the first 3 EPs are, spot on. And then after that, yeah. But convince me otherwise, if you are that inclined. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. We are steadily moving onwards, up and away, and we really appreciate everybody who does come on board and help support the channel. So click and subscribe if you haven't done. You won't regret it. You probably won't even remember doing it. It's totally painless. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.